Hey, good morning, Justice Warriors. I am so excited to get my video done today and get on with my letter of intent that I finally started last night. I want to thank everybody for being here. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Idaho 4. I'm also going to talk about a case that is 31 years old today. I learned about this case on Tyler Feller's show last night. And I usually don't watch Tyler Feller's show. I'm really glad I caught this one. Um, there's just so many good content creators to choose from. So, I kind of have my go-tos and then I try to mix it up with some others. Um, it's such an amazing diversity, I think, that we have here on YouTube. Let me say the date. It is December 6th, 2022. It's just about 20 minutes after 8 in the morning, East Coast time. So today's the 31-year anniversary of an atrocity that just so happened to happen in Austin, Texas, with a murder of 4 young women. I'll get into that, but that quadruple homicide has still not been solved. Okay? Wow. Quadruple homicide, 4 young women. I just can't help but get really pissed off about the sexism. I personally believe if it was 4 young men, it would have been solved by now. I know I'm biased. Anyway, everything I say is simply my opinion, my conspiracy theory opinion, allegedly, as Rich Lux likes to say, and I just think that's the funniest thing in the world. Um, And it's purely for the sake of conversation, opening up a discussion, hopefully educational, and at times it can be considered entertainment. However, I've reiterated again and again, I do not consider true crime entertainment personally, myself. Okay, let me just go ahead and read this to you. The guest that Tyler Feller had on last night is a retired U.S. Marshal who was actually on this case from 31 years ago today. So they were talking about some comparisons. I'll just read you the deets real quick. The 1991 Austin yogurt shop killings are an unsolved quadruple homicide which took place at an I can't believe it's yogurt shop in Austin, Texas on Friday, December 6th, 1991. The victims were 4 teenage girls, 13-year-old Amy Ayers, 17-year-old Eliza Thomas, 17-year-old Jennifer Harbison, and Jennifer's 15-year-old sister, Sarah. Jennifer and Eliza were employees at the shop, while Sarah and her friend Amy were in the shop to get a ride home with Jennifer after it closed at 11 p.m. Approximately 1 hour before closing time, a man who had tried to hustle customers in the queue was permitted to use the toilet in the back. Took a very long time and may have jammed a rear door open. A couple who left the shop just before 11 when Jennifer locked the front door to prevent more customers entering reported seeing 2 men at a table acting furtively. Around midnight, a police patrolman reported a fire in the shop, and first responders discovered the bodies of the girls inside. The victims had been shot in the head, some had been raped. A 22 and a 38 pistol were used to commit the murders, and the perpetrators probably exited out through a back door that was found unlocked. The organized method of operation, ability to control the victims, and destruction of evidence by arson pointed to an adult experienced in crime rather than teenagers, according to one of the original detectives on the case. Austin PD has DNA from an unknown male as a result of one of the rapes. A Y chromosome match for the perpetrator DNA has been found in a research database of the FBI, but it has declined to reveal the identity of the man in accordance with the law of anonymity for donors, and because thousands of men could bear this fragment of DNA, which is unable to identify individuals. Oh my goodness. Let that sink in. Um, how horrendous, how hideous, how absolutely disgusting. Um, let's get right into the situation that we've got here currently in Moscow, Idaho. Excuse me while I scratch my tear duct. That's a funny spot to have an itch. Oh my goodness. So it's really hideous, isn't it? I mean, just to let that sink in for a second, that these girls were assaulted in the most private and personal way as they were being taken out of this world. Oh my goodness. 31 years? 31 years. And there's a DNA match. I wonder who that DNA match might be connected to. Sure, it might be thousands, but they could narrow it down to who was in Austin on that date. They could probably narrow it down to a very short list and then interview them or interrogate them if they don't want to be polite about their questioning. My goodness. I'm just so disgusted. You know, when we've got suspects that are well connected, right? When we've got rich kids whose parents might own half the town or the entire town, when there's academic ties, political ties, obviously, even religious ties. You know, this case currently at the University of Idaho, just last night, I thought, if it's a kid, if it's a student from the university, and if the authorities have an idea of who it is, which my guess is that they have a very, very clear idea of who it is. Um, it sounds like they have a DNA. It sounds like some people have volunteered their DNA to rule themselves out. I would be very suspicious of anybody who's not volunteering their DNA to rule themselves out. Even if they are someone who would have a logical reason for their DNA being in the house, I would still be very suspicious of those individuals that did not just voluntarily say, take my DNA, we need to solve this crime. There's a mad murderer out there. None of us are safe, right? So if this suspect, let's pretend that they have primary suspect number one. Like I said, I'm gonna guess that they absolutely do. If this is a student of the university, that's not a good reflection on the institution. If this is an individual who's part of a fraternity or sorority for that matter, but we'll just kind of assume that it's most likely male. If he is part of the Greek system, the fraternity that he represents is not going to be looking good. So, my suspicion is that law enforcement and these institutions are scrambling on how to spin it so that it doesn't hurt the local economy, so it doesn't hurt the university, so it doesn't hurt that fraternity or fraternities in general. So how would they spin that if my little theory here might hold water? Maybe by trying to retroactively document that they were disconnecting themselves from this individual, maybe that they were kicking him out of the fraternity if they hadn't already kicked him out of the fraternity. Maybe the university could document that they were putting him on like an academic probation if he's a current student and they don't want to be affiliated with him and his evil bullshit. Okay. If there's a suspect, who are his family? Did they go to school there? Is he a legacy student? It sounds like it's one of these schools where there's a lot of legacy students, right? So, what do his parents do for work? Who were his grandparents? Did they go to school there? And do they donate money? That's a huge issue. I spoke to that momentarily yesterday, that the way these types of heinous crimes are solved is usually to put the economy at the top priority of the resolution. So whether that's a trial conviction or say a plea agreement, it's usually designed to protect the local economy. And, honestly, I'm not even going to say that that's a bad thing because, of course, local economies need to be protected. However, so do people, right? Especially women, especially young, beautiful women who are so often the target. So often the target. So, talking about targets, speaking of targets, the story has seemed that one of Kaylee or Maddie were the targets, right? Um, if one of those two is the actual target, whichever one it is, I still think that that could be a stalker, an ex-boyfriend, somebody that they've known for a very long time. Remember, Maddie and Kaylee have been best friends since sixth grade. And allegedly, Kaylee's ex boyfriend, Jack D, has grown up with her also, with Kaylee. So that would imply that he grew up with Maddie. And even though he was a boyfriend, he could still be a stalker, potentially. Maybe especially because he was dumped. He could be a potential stalker. Maybe that's why they've gone back and forth on it's a stalker, it's not a stalker. Yes, she had a stalker. No, she didn't have a stalker. If the stalker is an ex boyfriend, that's still stalking. That's still inappropriate, right? And perhaps perhaps, I'm not saying it is, this has not been determined, but perhaps Xana's father changed the lock on the front door. I don't think we know yet if it was her bedroom or the house that he changed the lock on. I'm just thinking for a moment, if it was the house, maybe that's because somebody had a key, somebody had access to get in that house, and they didn't want that person to have access anymore, like maybe a recent ex-boyfriend or something like that. So, um, if there's more than one perp, and if there's anything resembling any kind of cover-up at all, then we have the C word that nobody likes to say. Nobody wants to attach themselves to conspiracy, collusion. All right. So if there's more than one perp, if there's anything resembling a cover up, then we have a conspiracy. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say in this short video. I need to get that letter written. But, the intersection of law enforcement and domestic violence, if this is an ex boyfriend, then this is an act of domestic violence. That makes sense, right? I don't need to explain that. My feeling is that this is an act of domestic violence. That type of rage and passion and superhuman ability can only be explained by a couple of things, and that's usually rejection, a narcissist who's been rejected and didn't take it well. I'm just going to wrap it up here. I think I've said everything I really needed to say. And please, even though it's grim material, if you are so inclined, please hit the like button, share, subscribe if you feel so moved. It does a lot for the algorithm, and it does a lot to keep me inspired to know that people like hearing this, even when it's really despicable crap that none of us really want to talk about. It needs to be addressed, right? It needs to be eradicated. And looking at this case from Austin, Texas, with 31 years of no resolution and four teenagers, all of them minors, violated like that, imagine what those families are experiencing. And then, especially when there's a situation like this going on in another state 31 years later. And if, if hopefully, the case in Moscow is resolved quickly and swiftly, that's just got to put salt in their open wounds and their broken hearts of still not finding justice for their daughters and sisters. My goodness. And again, my focus is looking at eradicating domestic violence, trying to solve the problem of our sexist, misogynistic culture, especially in terms of law enforcement. Law enforcement itself is sexist. It is primarily male dominated, and most women who get into a field like that that is so predominantly male, most of those women can be worst offenders of sexism and misogyny than guys, actually. I don't know how many of you guys out there in YouTube land have experienced that, but I've seen it. I've seen it for myself, and it's unreal. It's really despicable. You would hope when you have a woman in a position like that, like let's take Shannon Moon, for example, in Nevada County, up there in Tahoe area, with Kylie Rodney and Ms. Trinity Backus. Shannon Moon is the sheriff. She is a woman. She might be a feminist. She's a very open gay woman that would potentially make her inclined towards feminist belief system and equality of humanity. I mean, I don't even like to say feminist. I like to say humanist, right? Anyway, what has Shannon Moon done for Ms. Kylie Rodney? What has Shannon Moon done for Miss Trinity Backus? These young women lost their lives very, very likely at the hands of some sort of domestic violence, whether it's an ex-boyfriend, a friend's boyfriend, a frenemy. Those two young women were hanging out with their posses when they suddenly disappeared and were discovered deceased in the coming days, in the following days, right? And no one else was hurt. No one else was even missing. And no one knows a thing. Nobody saw nothing. Like, come on, people. Come on. Be real, right? Anyway, we are going to stay positive. We're going to stay focused. I'm going to finish my letter of intent and then get on with my the rest of my application that I'm finishing. And I'm going to try to share some of it with you. At first, I wasn't going to because I didn't want to jinx it. And I feel like it's going to be more productive for me and hopefully more productive for any of my viewers if I am sharing some of it. So I will. You can expect that in the next 9 days. It's 9 days till the deadline, and I would would like to have it done in 6 days so that I have plenty of time if there's any issues that come up. So, on that, I will say peace out. Please take really good care of yourselves. Drink your water, eat your protein, eat your fruits and veggies, and take it easy. Get your rest, relax, exercise. Hurry up and relax, right? Just be well and have a great day, and I will see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.